Hello, I made a series of 6 videos a few months ago at the time where farmers were demonstrating all over Europe against measures that the European Union and its member states wanted to impose restrictions actually on the farmers' activities. And the farmers all over Europe were extremely concerned about the impact that these measures were going to have on their livelihood. Now, we had seen the same kind of movement in India in recent years, where millions, massive numbers of farmers gathered in huge demonstrations all across India. So in Europe, governments made some concessions to calm people down and send them back to their farms, which had the desired effect. So there was a short-term band-aid that was applied to placate people. And the situation is far, far, far from over. So in these videos, I'm going to make an in-depth analysis. And the reason why I didn't publish them at the time is that I didn't feel the prompting, the impulse to put them online. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes the timing has to be right. So it seems counterintuitive because why not publish when the topic is burning hot, all over the news? But there are always deeper reasons at work. So the right timing apparently is now. And so the first of these 6 videos actually focuses on language, how the languaging being used to describe that human activity of working the land in order to produce food, and how the people who engage in that activity are called, how that languaging has evolved over time, and what that evolution reveals in terms of not only the evolution of society, but the social engineering agendas that are at work in order to produce that evolution. And so the following videos are going to be titled Evolution of Farming, Phasing Out Agriculture, Synthetic Food, The Great Insectoid Diet, and finally, Synthetic Food and Relocating the Human Herd. So this is going to be an in-depth analysis that I have divided in several short videos in an attempt to make things more digestible. So I'll leave it up to you to decide whether they are or not. Digestible maybe is the appropriate term in this particular case, since we are going to talk about food a lot. So here we go with this first video, The Great Peasant Rebellion. I want to talk today about the great farmers' revolt that is going on in Europe at the moment, which is quite literally a revolt, a rebellion of the peasant class. First, I want to touch upon the evolution of language, which is always very revealing and full of agenda, because the terms used to qualify people who are working the land in order to grow food has changed. It has evolved across time, because originally we were calling these people peasants, And in French, I believe the English word peasant comes from the French paysan, and paysan means the one from the land, because pays means the land. So paysan is the one of the land. So people who have a connection to the land and are working the land. It actually comes from the Latin paganus, pagan. Paganus, it also means of the land. Someone who has a connection to the land. See how interesting it is. So peasant the term morphed into farmer. And farmer originally didn't have the same meaning. Farmer meant someone who was renting their land. Renting their land from the actual owner of the land. And over time, peasant morphed into some kind of an insult. A peasant became someone who is sort of unrefined. In French there is the expression a fat peasant, which means someone who lacks all of the refinements of urban life, you know, who isn't urban at all, who is kind of rude and rough at the edges. So it became a term that is basically full of social contempt. And that happened mainly, as far as I can tell, I'm not a professional historian, but I believe it happened over the 19th century. And it signaled a sort of will to estrange ever more people from the land, because all of a sudden those of the land, they were called something else. First, it became almost an insult, and second, it was transitioned to an idea of, well, you know, you're not really the owner of the land you work on, you're just renting it from someone else. And then we had a further evolution of language where this is not really the case in the English-speaking world anymore that much, but in other parts of the world it is. The word farming was replaced with agriculture, and in the French-speaking countries you don't hear about the farmers that much anymore. They are called les agriculteurs, from the word agriculture, which has a much more technocratic vibe to it. The connotations of that word are very technocratic, and that reflects the evolution of that activity, because it's all about machines now. It's all about machines and profitability and graphs and calculations and synthetic fertilizers and poisonous industrial pesticides, and now genetically modified organisms. So you see how much the techno-consciousness and the technological way of life and ideology and its political administrative counterpart, which is technocracy, has taken over that human activity of working the land in order to produce food. Very interesting indeed.